you're talking about the military. I've gotten emails. We've heard a ton of stories. People resigning. Someone sent me a resignation letter recently. Someone apparently, was an officer and announced like over just the wokeness, CRT, and the vax mandate. They're like, I am quitting. And it's actually sad, really, because I've heard these stories of people who are like, it was my dream to be, to have a career in the military, work there until retirement, and now it's like I'm in my mid-30s and I'm out, I'm done, can't do it.
Right.
Some people even giving up like their pensions. And
Which
stuff.
It's super sad too, because who's going to fight this next war? It's not going to be these guys. We saw in Afghanistan this past couple of weeks, right? Work needed to get done, and I have no lack of faith in the 82nd Airborne guys who were there or the Marines that were there. I'm sure. I have no doubt that they're plenty capable of doing that job, but because of the leadership there, they weren't allowed to do that, right? So I wonder who's going to fight the next one. And we saw the answer. It was guys like Tim Kennedy and these other guys that went over there on their own dime, right? Guys that are, well, Tim's still in, but everybody but him was already out of the military. They had served their country. They were done, and they spent their own money to go back to conduct these operations, not to go kill people or blow things up. They went over there to save people, right? That's what the American warfighter does. They are, and it troubles me that the ranks of the U.S. service member have now been infected with this nonsense.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't know, like you were talking about police earlier. I'm not sure how much you can trust the individual at this point. You know what I mean? It's getting bad. Like this female staff sergeant that posted a video, like, when people are coming door to door, it's going to be me and I'll shoot you or whatever. Like, First of all, you never held a gun in your life, and it's pretty obvious. But that's who they want. Though. This lieutenant colonel gets booted out of his position and then he resigns. This woman, I don't know what's happened to her. Have you heard any news about her?
Nothing.
That seems like somebody that should be immediately kicked out of the military.
They want stormtroopers. Yeah. They don't want rational thinking individuals who are going to say, like, here's the Constitution, here's what my
You got an officer that publicly said she was going to storm people's doors.
She was a non-commissioned officer, staff sergeant, E6. Yeah. Oh, she didn't say she was going to. She said when it starts or whatever she said. I don't want to paraphrase too much, but she basically said the people going door to door, that's going to be me, and I will.
That's terror.
She was like,
that's a form of terror.
She was like, what do you think's going to happen when we're ordered to point you down? It's going to be us, and we're going to do it, and stuff like that.
Instead, what she says, you refuse the command.
I firmly believe, and have believed for a very long time, that if ordered, most probably enlisted would do it, would absolutely shoot an American. No joke.
People and robots,
we've seen it before, right? Kent State. It's happened in our parents' lifetime.
1970, May 4th, I went to Kent State for college. They fired on the crowd. The National Guard fired on the crowd, killed 4 college kids.
Yep, one guy took a bullet through his hand. No, but so I've been around military people for a large portion of my life, and there's a lot of people who argue with me in chat or like an email and being like, you don't understand, soldiers, they'll do the right thing, they're not robots, and I'm like,
they're not robots.
It's the bystander effect, though, right? People, psychology is infectious. Nothing is more infectious than psychology, and people in groups. It's the mob. We've been discussing the psychology of the mob for as long as human beings have been discussing psychology. The Stanford Prison Experiment, for example. You put people in hierarchical structures of power, and then mob rule takes over, and then you go to base instinct. That's what happens unless you're very well trained.
But when it comes to the military, it's actually really simple to understand why this she was E6, you said? She's right. They would do this. You know why? It's really, really simple. If Ian is running through the streets with a red bandana on or whatever, maybe he's jogging. That's right. And then she's standing there and she gets an order like, that's the guy. He's the terrorist. Take him down. Take him down. Do you think she's going to be like, nah, I don't trust you?
No, she shouldn't question that order. I mean,
she's going to be like,
about the military. You're like, if I question the order, are people going to die?
I mean, we're talking about the Bourne Identity right now, right? Or I guess the third movie where he finally meets up with the old guy and he's like...
Is that the Bourne Supremacy?
I think, or the Bourne Redundancy, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, right.
I'm not, but it came down to like, you got to shoot this guy. Why? And the reason was they wanted to break the person, right? Your individualism is gone. You thinking is gone. You kill who we tell you to kill. And that's not how it works. That's not how we trained our people in the 82nd Airborne. We put ourselves at great risk on a relatively regular basis to not inflict harm on people unnecessarily, right? Can't say the same about Obama, right? The drone strike stuff killed a lot of innocent people. I think something like 30% of the people killed in those strikes were just standing there.
One of the first things he did was bombing a village of women and children.
I've heard numbers that collateral damage of drone strikes are like
They started they
enormously large, like 90%.
rough, yeah.
But
they started just claiming that it's a military age male, they're an enemy combatant.
That's right. Yeah. Anybody, a military age male, by the way, is a male 14 years old or older.
Right. No. So I think people need to understand this when they just to reiterate to a certain extent. Think about yourself standing around with your friends. You hear a report like Antifa's coming in. They're armed. They got handguns. You see what just happened in Portland where they were shooting at the Proud Boys randomly. Like this was like there was no reason. Okay, so they were retreating. The Proud Boys were walking forward and they had clubs and shields or whatever. Probably not a good idea. Regardless, this guy turns around with a gun and starts randomly just firing and hits one of the guys in the legs. Now imagine you hear that, and then all of a sudden you see a dude with what looks like a weapon and he's wearing all black and then he's running towards you and they're like, that's him, stop him. Are you going to be like, hold on there a minute?
It's not even just from your leadership. The panic can happen in those situations under any normal or any number of circumstances. So we're talking about the one of the founding moments of our republic here. The reason that John Adams ended up getting involved with the Continental Congress and the movement towards becoming America, right, and breaking off of the British Empire is because there were British soldiers in Boston, and they were guarding some areas. There was a protest by the Sons of Liberty, which was run by his cousin Sam Adams, right? Not the beer guy, or maybe
not
he is.
the beer guy.
No, it's not.
Maybe
the
he is
guy.
the beer guy. I don't know. He was a politician, but Sam Adams is doing this thing. Somebody behind the British soldiers. Well, first of all, people are throwing heavy objects and hit one of the kids in the head, and then somebody behind them yelled fire.
Yep.
Right. Finally, through the trial, they figured it out. And John Adams represented the British people.
Yeah.
And he felt they got a good trial. They did. They got off. And then still the Crown sent over an edict saying all military court-martials will now be tried back in England. So he's like, well, you don't even believe in our ability to self-govern. Right. Now I'm going to get involved. And he became the second president of the United States. So this stuff can happen in any kind of power vacuum. It doesn't matter if it's a leader doing it or if it's just the fog of war.